My wig and I are back and we've never looked better. I feel that very strongly. I hated my roots in the last video, so I thought to myself, how can I make it look like I just have pink hair? I know, Kayla. We'll use pink mascara and run it through the parts that are showing. So I did that, and it went about as well as you would think. Not as well as I would think. I would think it would have worked perfectly. I realize now that was a naive thought. So we're gonna do this with mascara in my hair. It's okay. Anyway, so reality TV has built a repeatable format for stars who get canceled. Step back, do the podcast and book circuit to rebuild a redemption narrative, then return with a show built explicitly around personal growth, obviously. And when I watch reality TV, I try to look past all the trivialities and try to get to the why that fuels the whole show. Maybe it's to make myself feel better about watching so much of it, I don't know. But that's what I did with this show I'm about to talk about, and it's why I believe that House of Stassi is, whether we like it or not, more than a comeback. When you step back and look at it, actually, it's really a case study in how this very pipeline we see has kind of become its own genre. But anyway, hi, hello, my name is Kayla. You may or may not have heard of me, and if you have, we've met under celestial circumstances because nobody's heard of me. So I'll admit, when I saw the ads for this show, I was only vaguely aware of who Stassi Schroeder is, being a very casual Vanderpump viewer. Side note, I love Lisa Vanderpump because she really embodies that quote from The Office by Joe about becoming wealthy by either working hard or marrying rich. She did both. One thing I immediately noticed about this show, I got wig hair in my mouth. One thing I immediately noticed about this show is that they really make you feel from the get like you don't need any context on who Stassi is or was. Like, the show basically just goes, trust us. You don't need to know anything about Stassi. Don't worry about it. Just come with us. Just shh. Come with us. Don't look her up. Just come with us. That's how I felt when I was watching the show. Well, I did look her up, and for those who want to know, Stassi was sort of the queen bee on Vanderpump Rules, and she was a major cast member since the show came out around 2013. She was the mean girl by design. I don't know anything about the Jax Taylor thing, but I do know how friends I have who watch Vanderpump react when I ask them about the Stassi Jax Taylor thing. Like, when I ask about it, they talk about it like it was World War I and they were literally there themselves in a ditch. That's the vibe I get when people talk about Jax and Stassi, but we don't even have time for that today. But I do know about bitch slap. We all know about bitch slap. Bitch slap is probably the most famous episode involving Stassi. It was like this whole blow up that was with Kristen Doute. I don't know their actual names. I don't know any of their last names. Stassi had found out that Kristen had slept with Jax while he was dating Stassi, and so Stassi finds this out and backhands Kristen across the face. Bitch slap, that's the episode. And you know, that volatility really became a running bit on the show. I say that so cheerfully. Stassi herself started calling it her dark passenger, which if you've watched Dexter, it's a reference to that. But dark passenger basically describes the dark force inside Dexter. I'm not gonna explain Dexter to you if you haven't seen Dexter, but it's the force inside Dexter that makes him do the things he does. That's the dark passenger in Stassi. And on Stassi, it honestly became like shorthand for the version of her that takes over when she feels attacked or cornered. The castmates even knew about dark passenger well enough that in one season 8 episode, they all had to like band together on the phone to neutralize the dark passenger in Stassi. So, you know, it's a big deal. Then in June 2020, amid the national reckoning following George Floyd's unaliving, Faith Stowers, a former castmate, revealed that Stassi and Kristen once called the police on her in 2018 for a crime she did not commit, falsely linking her to a theft because she was a Black woman they thought looked similar to the suspect. Bravo fired both of them within days. And Stassi, who was pregnant at the time, lost like everything. Lost her agency, her PR firm, brand deals, nearly everything essentially overnight. Since then, she's spent 5 years rebuilding. Podcasts, couple of New York Times bestsellers. She got a diversity coach apparently, which, yeah, you should get one of those. A return to the Bravo adjacent world via a guest stint on Vanderpump Villa. And now House of Stassi, her own solo reality show on her own terms about her own comeback. Which brings us to the pipeline. So let's fast forward to Stassi's debut week, where the show quickly jumped to the #1 spot on Hulu's TV chart. Stassi is now a mother of 2, married to Beau Clark, a best-selling author, and hosting her own podcast, serving as both the star and executive producer of her own series. She pitched the show around showing dynamics that aren't normally represented in TV, citing the reverse gender roles in her marriage as a hook. The central through line of the show is through that role reversal. Beau, who stepped away from his casting career to become the primary at-home parent, describes feeling like a 1950s housewife, whereas Stassi is cast as the breadwinner. And you see the tension escalate across the season. Stassi is shown struggling to balance motherhood, family, and career, leading to repeated clashes with Beau over feeling unappreciated. And there are a few subplots in the show, but one that we get a flash of at the beginning involves friction with Beau's sister over a matching tattoo dispute. Basically, Beau met his sister later in life. They have matching tattoos. Beau does not have any kind of tattoo of Stassi at the beginning of the season. And this becomes a flashpoint for a larger conversation about family loyalty and boundaries between the couple. The season builds toward an explosive finale where Stassi's dark passenger comes out, and this leads to a breakdown, though Stassi maintains that she and Beau are in a stable place and divorce was never on the table. So when I was watching this series early on, I was asking myself, why does every canceled reality TV star's comeback follow the exact same 3 steps as every other canceled reality TV star? You know what I mean? Like, it's seriously 3 steps. Where's my little brushy? Like, seriously, it's 3 steps. Get fired, start a podcast, and then come back with a show that is all about how much you've grown. It's seriously become its own genre, and House of Stassi might be the most polished version we've seen within this genre. Let's call it the redemption arc to podcast pipeline and see how it actually works. So for Exhibit A, we've got Jax Taylor. 8 seasons into Vanderpump Rules, Jax was out. Production later said he'd been here in my blush. Production later said he'd been sabotaging filming, refusing scheduled scenes, and texting behind the scenes in a way that made people think he just didn't want to do it anymore. He was also, by his own admission, dealing with a substance abuse problem that lasted over 2 decades. So what's the next move? A podcast, where he gets to control the narrative himself instead of producers controlling it for him. And it worked well enough that a few years later, he's not just back on TV. No, he's a founding cast member for an entirely new Bravo series. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's In the Valley. It also has Kristen in it, I believe. I haven't watched it yet. I think I might cover it. We'll see. Worth noting though, the redemption arc wasn't exactly a straight line. Jax was later pushed out of the Valley too, amid backlash over his ex-wife as they were dealing with divorce proceedings, before re-emerging again with a talk about sobriety and personal transformation. Oh, Kayla, you can't talk while doing makeup. Blush is just so pigmented. It's good though. I like pigment. And that's almost the point, right? You know, the whole narrative about personal transformation. The pipeline doesn't require the redemption arc to be over or complete. It just requires the narrative of pursuing one. You know what I mean? Then we have Exhibit B, Tamra Judge. She was on Real Housewives of Orange County for 12 seasons, only to have it all end with a phone call. She says to this day that she still doesn't understand why they cut her from the show. The reports did point to cost cutting and the fact that her storyline kind of just went flat. But Tamra didn't just disappear. She went on with fellow fired housewife Teddy Mellencamp, and they went on to create their own podcast, Two Teas in a Pod. And this podcast was built explicitly on the fact that they'd both been let go, recapping the very show that dropped them. It actually became one of the most successful podcasts in the Bravo recap space. And 3 years after her firing, Tamra wasn't just getting offers. No, she got offered her old job back, returning to Real Housewives of Orange County for season 17, this time positioned as the vindicated one. So with these 2 examples, we've proven that the pipeline works, right? Like, we've proven twice over that it works. Like, you get fired, you get a mic, control the narrative of your story out loud for as long as possible until they eventually let you back in. Sometimes to the same show, sometimes to a bigger one. Here's what makes Stassi's version different though. She was actually offered a seat on that assembly line. When her old VPR castmates regrouped for The Valley, she was on the list to be cast. And she turned it down, saying every fiber in her being told her not to do it. It wasn't her crew, so it wouldn't reflect her reality. So instead of taking the group redemption vehicle, she just went ahead and built her own. Not a show where the drama comes from other people's messes, a solo project produced by her about her specific marriage and her specific reinvention. If The Valley is the pipeline as an assembly line, House of Stassi is the pipeline privatized. She didn't just walk the redemption arc everyone else was walking. She optioned it, wrote herself the lead role, and made sure she owned the IP. And House of Stassi wastes no time in proving that this pipeline low-key works. The show dropped its first 2 episodes on Freeform, then hit Hulu the next day. Where's my eyebrow brush? And let me tell you, it didn't just do well. It went straight to Hulu's #1 spot on their chart, with a #2 debut across all of TV and film. In its first week alone, it held a top 6 spot in Hulu's daily rankings. But what's actually interesting isn't just that it worked, it's how she sold it. Before a single episode aired, Stassi was telling anyone who listened exactly what type of show it was gonna be. She basically said, I know reality TV and I will bleed out for this. And that's not like an accidental promotion, right? Like, Stassi's been in this game for a while. She knows how it works. That's the pitch. The vulnerability isn't a byproduct of the show, it is the show. And the specific brand of vulnerability she led with was a role reversal. Like, Stassi's the breadwinner. She is booked and busy, you know, running her own little empire. It's cute. Beau stepped back to take care of the house and raise the kids. It's presented right out of the gate as the hook that sets it apart from other Bravo adjacent comeback shows. Basically, you're gonna see the dynamics that we normally don't get to see represented on TV. Which, fair, that type of dynamic is underrepresented on reality TV. But notice the framing. It's not watch my marriage struggle, it's watch me grow through the struggle of my marriage. I mean, that's the redemption arc engine operating exactly the way it's supposed to. Personal difficulty reframed as evidence of evolution. As an example, think about it like a gym selfie. A before and after post only works if you can see both photos. The struggle has to be visible in order for the growth to register. Reality TV redemption works the same way. The pipeline doesn't just tolerate difficulty on camera, it requires it. If Stassi's marriage looked easy, there'd be no arc to sell. The hard part is not a flaw in the pitch she's giving, it's simply the before photo. The pipeline doesn't require you to have resolved anything. It just needs you to be visibly working on it on camera with a season order. You know what I mean? Gonna set my blush. So if the pitch is watch me grow, the season has to give you conflict to grow through. And House of Stassi delivers that conflict on a schedule. Like, we can start with the role reversal. It isn't just a premise, it's the whole engine of the show, and the series puts it front and center in the very first episode. Beau sits down with a friend to explain that he's been shoving down everything he's been feeling, admitting that he's angry and resentful but doesn't want to stress Stassi out. Then, in the scene the show clearly built the whole episode around, he says to her, I feel like a 1950s housewife where I have my apron on, something like that, and I'm cleaning everything while feeding the kids. He even goes as far to compare her to like a sitcom husband, describing her as kind of walking in whenever he's got like an apron on and she just like sits down and asks for a beer. Stassi denies the specifics, but by the end of the conversation, she's in tears, telling him she needs to make more of an effort. I mean, that's a complete 3-act arc right then and there. Confession, confrontation, remorse on Stassi's part. And you know what? It's all inside a single premiere episode. How about that? This isn't like a slow burn tension the show stumbled into. It's a structural choice. Open with your most quotable conflict so the thesis of the whole show is present before episode 1 even ends. Then there's the tattoo storyline, which I kind of mentioned earlier. So basically Beau has a tattoo of his sister's name and he doesn't have one of Stassi's. It surfaces up as a general sore point and it becomes tangled in what the show is really about, honestly, where Beau's loyalties sit, and what he prioritizes without seeming to notice that he's doing it. It's not as explosive as the 1950s housewife scene, but that's exactly its function. Which brings us to the finale, where the show clashes on everything it's been building. They're on this haunted ship, the Queen Mary, which I know from BuzzFeed Unsolved. Stassi is surrounded by her closest friends, and she feels cornered, and guess what? Dark Passenger comes out. She lashes out at the group and then ends up on the floor of the ship. It's really framed as like the rawest, least controlled moment of the season. And then almost immediately, the show pivots to reassurance. She and Beau are fine, she says. Comparing their marriage to kind of this like hard-won bond that neither of their parents had because they both come from divorced families. Like, it's a blow up and it's a repair back to back in one episode. And it's all intentional. That's like the shape of the redemption arc, you know, just confined into one arc. And it's all intentional, you know, like that's the redemption arc's entire shape compressed into one sequence. You need the collapse and the recovery filmed in the same breath because the growth only reads as real if the audience watched the low point in real time. Put those three moments together and you can see exactly how the machine is designed. A premiere episode confession to set the thesis, a mid-season simmer to keep the tension alive, and a finale blow up and repair to deliver on the growth that the whole pitched promised. So it's really not that any of this is fake. It's that the redemption arc has its own shape, and House of Stassi hits every point of that shape almost on schedule. This isn't just a few isolated comeback stories. It's become an actual industry with its own infrastructure and its own roster. Like, remember Teddy and Tamra? Remember Teddy and Tamra's podcast, Two Teas in a Pod? That success didn't just get Tamra her old job back, it became a whole ass business model. iHeart looked at what worked and built an entire slate out of that exact same premise. Tamra got Talking Traders, which is a different show built around, again, another Bravo franchise. By the way, I love The Traders. The last season, I will never stop talking about the most recent season of The Traders. It was so good. Oh my God. Teddy, meanwhile, teamed up with another co-host and formed her own podcast. And in shows like The Eds, Two Jersey Girls, Ay Por Favor, different casts, different franchises, same format. And you've got a full network running on the same fuel. Former cast members talking about the shows that just let them go. And it's not just an iHeart thing or even a Housewives thing. I mean, look at Jax Taylor. He has In the Mind of Jax Taylor. Kristen also has her own recap podcast. And I mean, Vicky Gunvalson, she's been doing Whoop It Up for years. At this point, you could build an entire podcast app made up of nothing but fired reality stars narrating their own comebacks. And multiple companies basically have, which is what makes Stassi's pitch, hold on, I can't do my eyeliner and talk at the same time, I'm sorry. Which is what makes Stassi's pitch, you know, I know reality TV and I will bleed out for it, land differently once you see the roster behind it. She's not reinventing a new kind of vulnerability as content. She's plugging into a pipeline with a proven cast list, a proven format, and a proven audience that shows up for every version of the same story. Really, the only real innovation of House of Stassi is scale. Instead of podcast mic, she got a season. Okay, I gotta do lashes off camera, hold on. Never done these lashes before. I'm a little nervous, but we'll see how they work. Wait, did I actually get these lashes right? I've been practicing my lashes. Am I getting good at fake lashes? Wow. So where does that leave House of Stassi? It's easy to watch a season like this and ask the wrong question. Was it real? Was she really struggling? Were they really gonna get a divorce potentially? But that's not really the interesting question in my opinion, because the pipeline was never designed to answer those questions. It's kind of designed to make the question feel beside the point. The real question is, why do we keep rewarding this same kind of story? Not growth exactly, but visible growth, performed growth. Like, there's no accountability. There's the performance of working on something in front of an audience with receipts. Every moment of House of Stassi, from the pitch to the premiere confession to the finale blow up, is built to give you that performance on schedule. Because we, as the collective audience, have decided that that's what redemption is supposed to look like when on a screen. And maybe that's the actual point of the pipeline, not that it's fake. Like, most of these moments are probably genuinely difficult to live through. It's that it flattens real messy, non-linear growth into something that needs to be resolved by episode 10. And let's be honest, growth doesn't happen with a season arc. It doesn't need a finale to prove that it happened. But the pipeline needs both, because without the collapse and recovery arc, there is no show. And without the show, there is no comeback. So the next time a canceled reality star pops up with a podcast and then a book and then a reality show about how much they've grown, you'll know the shape before it even starts. Confession, conflict, collapse, repair, then boom, season 2. It worked for Jax. It worked for Tamra, and it's working right now for Stassi. And it'll keep working because we keep showing up for it, myself included, considering I just spent this whole video breaking it down for you. So that's the House of Stassi and the redemption arc to podcast pipeline. If you want to see where I think this pipeline goes next, let me know in the comments who you think is due for their own seasons. Bye!